well. All right, so we are setting up for Facebook. We should be live in Facebook in about, I'll tell you when you're live. We are live on Facebook right now. Yep, we are live. So yes, gentlemen. 1 second.
All right.
1 second. 1 second. Yeah, so just let me reload this page here. And just let me do some sharing. So let me just move this. Yeah, gentlemen. So we actually live on
All right.
Facebook.
Nice.
Right. So definitely, hope that there's no bad feedback, and that is key. Let me just check something. Make sure I turn off my Facebook here. And I got too much Facebook accounts open. So just let me make sure.
Gotta minimize all.
Yeah, I gotta minimize all and make sure that. Hey guys, welcome. I'm just seeing about 8 persons live. Just give us a second as I'm trying to mute some of my other Facebook accounts. Welcome everyone to the debrief. If it is possible, I'm looking at 2 screens, and you see anything that is out of the ordinary or anything that sounds bad, just let us know. I'm getting some welcome backs here as well. Thank you.
Wonderful.
This is Marcine. Thank you very much. Thank you for having us. And it's Pammy. So thank you for having us as well. We miss you guys. Guys, how you felt about all this time away from the crowds? Simon and Timor. We're waiting to be joined by what's his name?
Jermaine Beckford.
Jermaine Beckford. So please, if you can, for us, share the link. As usual, nothing has changed. So we always beg for these indulgence. Well, we share the links to different groups that are also missing us. There is a number of people that are also missing us. So begging your indulgence. Well, we just go over to share, but we ask that you could also share us as well, so people know we are back. We are happy to be back with you. We are happy to have discussions with you, but we know we had to do it according to law, and so that we just took a time out to really do it this way. But we are ecstatic to be back with you, the people that are always waiting to hear us and to see us. And so thank you very much. Simon, switch up. Simon, they started early on you.
That's fine. That's fine. I can take it, man. This is good. It's so good to be back with DeBrief TV and with the team. It is so good to be back out, although it's virtually at this point. Lockdown was a whole roller coaster of emotions for everyone, I believe. I do believe that this second time around was a bit more challenging than the first time. I think, surprisingly, last year when we were under lockdown, because it was all new, there was a lot more caution. I mean, people were literally at home right through. I mean, the COVID unit didn't have anything much to do last year until coming down to like December and so on, right. When there were some events and so on. But from June, from April, March coming down, I mean, Beijing, since it was new, everybody was really abiding by the lockdown protocols. And it's good to be back out. It's good to see that we're trying to get the economic activity back in Barbados, because at the end of the day, right. We all got to live. We have to live. We have to be able to function as a society, and we have to be able to carry out our purpose in society. So I think it is very important that we, are out there. So I just want to say a special good evening to everybody, all of the followers, persons who would have been supporting DeBrief from last year. We thank you. Those locally, those in America and beyond. We thank you for your support.
Yeah, definitely. Kimar, you want to add anything?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having us back. We definitely missed you. I myself missed the show, and I'm happy to be back on. A lot has happened since we last been here. So I really appreciate you tuning in and, give us that full support again. So we promise to have an action-packed show today and through a couple of months that we're going to be here. I want to congratulate Simon. I know he's wearing his red shirt today. So
I just picked up something to put on, you know.
yeah,
It was hung up, it was clean, and it was red, so I just put it on.
yes, but congrats to you, buddy, for making your transition. And yeah, so we'll definitely see how things go. We have a lot to contribute, a lot to add as young people in society.
I believe so.
We're going through the COVID pandemic now, so our voices need to be heard as young people, as young future leaders in the country, as to the direction we want it to go. So I would definitely encourage all of our young people who may be tuning in, or even if you have family that are young people as well, encourage them to tune in if they have anything going on to share, so we can hear what's happening among our youth. Um, some people are progressing, and some of us are having our challenges.
That's
but
right.
At the end of the day, we have to look out for each other and be our brother's keeper. So again, thank you all for tuning in, and we appreciate your advice.
We want to say also welcome to, I'm seeing here, Akil Mears. Yeah, thanks for the welcome as well as Pammy Paris, Simon Switcher, Dwight Mosley, the blue shirt, blue shirt to red shirt. Good day, guys. I also seen Troy Weeks and Dal, as well as Vincent Griffith, Kevin Rowe, Troy Weeks again. So guys, yeah, we're happy. Yeah, so one of the things we want to do this evening is actually have a discussion about the lockdown. As Simon said, as Kimar said, it has been a trying time for all of us as it relates to the lockdown. I can tell you from, I guess the guys could share with you from their perspective. Personally, I'm coming from the angle of being on the front line, having my own little scare in the last couple of months ago, where somebody, one of our homeless, was actually affected with COVID-19. So we've also had our trying times on it, both financially, both personally, both work related, and we wanted to hear what you, the general public out there, is saying. Bring the fruitful discussions. We want you to ask your questions. The topic tonight is just the brief discussion on the lockdown, how its impact, how it impacted you, your family. Just have a meaningful conversation for right now before we even go back into looking at. Thanks for watching. I'm having somebody here. Isolene is watching all the way from Brooklyn. Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
So glad to know we're touching. We're going up 23 viewers strong. So we want to hear from you guys. How was it for you? If there's any technical difficulties or glitches, please let us know, because we're using technology as always, but we are all in our own different spaces right now. But we want to hear from you. What or how it has been for you personally, your family. We have a new technology, so we can invite you into chat as well. Some people may be joining and asking to join as well. So we want to hear from you. We want to hear what you have to say. But first of all, guys, before questions start coming in, what are your thoughts as it relates to the government handling of the lockdown? There's so much different components. And when we say lockdown, we're talking about, we could be looking at the COVID monitoring. We saw how the distribution of food was. We've seen the economy. We are now seeing estimates coming up about new budget and new things as it relates to how the government is going to go forward. And also, one of the two questions I want to ask is, what do you feel and how do you feel as if because of the COVID-19 do you think that other areas of government has been neglected? I think that's a very interesting one, because the focus are not neglected purposely by government, but because of the level that we are at with this COVID-19 situation. And then the questions are coming in fast and furious, but go ahead, guys, let me get to you guys. We can start with Simon and then we can go over to Kimar.
Hey, well, first of all, the first thing that everyone has to appreciate is that never in the history of Barbados we had something like this to deal with, this type of pandemic. We would have thought that Barbados would have suffered greater than a hurricane if a hurricane had hit it. But many people said, you know what, I would have preferred to have the hurricane and within a couple of weeks you're back to normal than to have this prolonged situation for over a year. Now, remember that no rooftop blew off. I mean, there was no flooding, but because of this invisible virus, its origins, people say China, wherever, we don't know. But what we are aware of is that because of COVID-19, it crippled our economy. So any gains that were made by the government leading up to this time were lost. So it's important to understand the economic impact, because economics drives everything. And as simple as, I think Dr. Kevin Greenidge was explaining it when he was on TV. And that goes back to my whole view of how the government handled this. I think in terms of communication, you got to give the government 10 out of 10 for communication, because we got updates. There were press conferences. Even if we had too many press conferences, it doesn't matter. People were not in the dark. People understood what was happening in Barbados. People understood. We had the czar at first leading us, and we had other medical professionals and so on last year, giving us a better understanding of the virus and what to do and what not to do. But you will see that coming on to the ending of 2020, you know, we all came off the accelerator a bit, whether it's government or people and groups and so on, because people wanted to get out. It's unnatural to spend 3-4 months in your house on lockdown, not being able to do the things you normally like to do. Whether or not we like it, we are a social society. We like to relax, we like to line, we like to visit our friends and have the whole freedom of movement. But COVID hampered all of that. So in terms of communication, I would say the government did a great job. In terms of inspiring messages, I think that last year we saw how the Prime Minister, despite her own medical challenges, she had a major operation, she was still able to come address the country. She took the country into her own personal confidence, and we were able to understand what was happening. Another thing too, going back to leadership, because whether we talk about it, you want to talk about government, you got to talk about leadership. I have never seen a Prime Minister on so many international programs. International interviews with top shelf interviewers. And poor, whether it was on BBC News, our Prime Minister was out there getting her view across with regards to the starting of a new world order, more or less, for the small island developing states that have their own challenges as opposed to developed countries. So we saw leadership. We saw leadership. We saw even with Minister Bostic. In my opinion, Minister Bostic rose to the occasion, and he did what he had to do, and he was always there to take questions and so on. We also saw the media houses as well, or journalists. They've had to up their game in terms of the level of questions that they ask people in the public office. I think that they've improved a lot. Initially, when they started, you know, we don't really have a culture in Barbados where, like in America, you got the big press conferences, you got the press secretary addressing all the issues. But we had our journalists and media persons asking the government questions, asking the specialist questions, raising concerns. And I think that in a whole, our media houses did a good job in terms of trying to get the message across the government and also conveying the government's message correctly. Were we not sometimes where a pretty ball was dropped? Yeah. I can think really as it relates to the whole issue, if we should have reopened the country or let in tourists. There are a lot of mixed views on that, even from last year. Some people might say, you know what, we should have kept the country shut and we would have been better. Then there are others that say, you know what, we need the foreign exchange. If the agents had complied with wearing the mask and sanitizing last year, because it's not government's responsibility to put a mask on you or keep a mask on you and sanitize your hands. That's your personal responsibility. Yeah. Right. People say, you know what, the tourists bring the virus and so on. So there are a lot of issues that can come out of that from last year to now. I think that the government's approach with regards to feeding people, the whole, the hampers, the care packages that were distributed, what it shows is that logistically, we still have some challenges getting to people efficiently and effectively, because there are a lot of people who had to wait weeks to get the care packages, but the care packages went out to persons. I think probably it could have been better facilitated with the community centers and other community groups to assist persons. But, you know, that's all in hindsight, in retrospect. But all in all, the government's handling of COVID, if we're being objective, on a scale of 1 to 10, you got to give the government at least an 8. Right. 8, 7.5, 8, based on how they were able to address issues, how they were able to get the numbers down. Because what we're seeing now is that the trend is spiraling down. And we got to commend the Prime Minister too and her team for getting the vaccine. You know, there's all this talk about the vaccine, this and vaccine that. But I got the vaccine. I'm feeling good.
Still alive?
It goes, yeah, of course. Of course. My whole family got it. And some of my relatives got it too as well. So everybody's doing well. I think that one of the drawbacks and one of the negatives coming out of COVID is that there was information overload. I got so many people sending me negative things about COVID and the vaccine all during that time. I was like, all right, let's take it easy. Because for me, I need to travel. I intend to travel later on down this year. So I know I need to get the vaccine. That's the only way I can travel.
Yeah.
So if that to me was a no-brainer. I got vaccines from the time I was a child growing up, whether it was MMR, smallpox, whatever. When I traveled overseas to other countries, to Asia,
so you're not new to vaccine.
No, and I never asked back then what was in it.
let me read some comments coming from the people fast and furious, because we up to almost 40 comments and we just start. Some is saying, Wayne is saying is a real impact strong felt. The few items from the care packages gone. I don't know if that's a question, Wayne. The lockdown is more is saying the lockdown is foolish. There is no win. There's no virus in Barbados. I don't want to agree with you, and I really don't agree with you there, Wayne, because that is not. It would be ignorant for me to believe that there is none. Jermaine is joining us right now. Kimar, just letting you know you have to turn back on your video. If not, you will not be showing on Facebook. I cannot see you on Facebook. Your video needs to be on if you're still at your computer. Just letting you know, Jermaine. Pardon me? Yeah, your video needs to be on for you to show on Facebook. Once it's off, you're not going to show on Facebook. I'm now learning the technology. Yes, we can now see you.
Oh,
Jermaine, unmute yourself.
Yeah, Jermaine, he's coming on. So here's what I'm just reading some comments. As I said, that they're coming in fast and furious. I said, I think COVID show up the inefficiency of our institution. Nevertheless, it is the right time to go back to the drawing board. Some people agree with Simon.
Yes.
Some don't agree with Simon. So I'm just going to go down.
All right, hold on, sir. Let me change my location so you can see me better, huh?
Okay, just do that there and just unmute yourself while you do that there. Just let me mute you while you do that and then come back on.
Oh, you're on mute?
We are live on Facebook already.
That's very good.
Okay, just let me move you off a little bit and then we could go from there. All right, so some boys said communication without transparency.
Is me better now?
Yes, please.
Jermaine, could you please mute him?
Just mute me, Jermaine, while you do your thing, please. Because as I said, we are live. And I don't want you distracting the Barbadians that are listening. Hamper program was awesome despite the wait. Some people agree with it. And somebody said, if communication was so great, we would have known ahead of time that testing was impacted and affected. Therefore, the caution and risk factor would have been greater. So there are people sending in these comments. Simon got on his red shirt. Big up to Alicia. Don't know she's a red shirt all the way to get. Kevin Rowe. The pandemic forced entrepreneurs like myself to become more creative and productive, and productive services were offered. My thing is yes, Kimar, you were to drop your point. So go ahead and drop your point there for me there, Stuart.
Yes. Well, overall, I think that the government managed the situation in a fair sense, in that it had to balance between the economics and the public health crisis.
Yeah.
As we could see, the unemployment situation was very severe, and NAS had to pay out millions of dollars in claims, and people were home. So when the government locked down in the first place, I was not totally surprised because the numbers were getting out of hand. But during the lockdown, more people lost jobs, and the private sector even cried out about the lockdown, and then we had an extended lockdown. But overall, the government did not lose out from the lockdown, given that the fact that they had the amount of reserves to suffice. So really, pain came was among the people on the ground, where they would have lost jobs. People would have been at home, businesses would have had to close. So that's where the pain was felt. Yesterday was the care packages. I thought the care packages was a very good initiative. However, it was not sustainable in the sense that as soon as items are gone, you still need income. So that is where I thought that more attention was needed, in the sense that we have to try to find a balance between public interaction and the economics of the country. So I don't support a full-fledged lockdown in any type of way. What I support would be the wearing of masks and the sanitizing and what's not, because we live in a country we live in a world where diseases are rampant, and we take precautionary measures to maneuver through these diseases. So I don't think that people would give up having sex because there's AIDS in the world. You would wear a condom, right? So
reduce the risk.
Yes, the same way I would recommend for people to wear the mask and what's not. But overall, we've seen in the country that when it comes to revenue and government collecting revenue, there was a significant hole in the we still under the IMF program, we still under the BERT program, and we still have to meet some targets. So I think persons need to understand why the government would open the country and why they would encourage you to take the precautionary measures. So I would just recommend for people to follow that lead.
Well, what about Kimar, if I may jump in here? I'm seeing somebody here asking a question. Sancho is asking a question. My question is, so you think Barbados government could have implemented a stimulus check to families to put back money into their economy?
Yeah, I definitely agree that a stimulus is even before we had our first case of coronavirus, I gave an interview to Nation News speaking about stimulus checks to persons in specific industries. So if you can recall with the severance situation, many hotel workers are still at home having not received severance or unemployment in many instances. So households in itself did not have income to rally through the lockdown. And as we know, people live check to check. So we don't have people with thousands of dollars in savings to be able to afford to live through prolonged lockdown. So yes, I definitely believe that stimulus checks are a good way to help people through the economy.
But also remember that if we could put a spin on that, Kimar, is that people did receive from the government $600, and I think that went on even longer than anticipated. Where I hear Sanchez saying in America they're receiving for $1,400 stimulus check. I don't know if Sanchez, I will let you to tell me if that is a one-off, because in Barbados, well, persons were receiving $600. Barbadians would have received $600 for an extended period of time, and as far as I'm concerned, that is still going on. And in Parliament, it was passed for a continuation of that. So I know that there are a number of Barbadians, thousands of Barbadians rather, which is under the Household Mitigation Unit, which is headed by Corey Lane and some others, the different ministries are getting that package ready. And I think that was a good thing to keep people going.
But take into consideration that because there was the program also for the small business persons when the shops were closed at the I think it was $250 per
250
person,
depending on the shops and $1,400, depending on where what type of business you had.
We needed something like that to target small businesses, in the sense that many businesses would have had to shut down, not from the health perspective, but from the fact that they were not making any money. So people had to shut down, and then there were challenges for people registering and getting sent on to the program properly. Right? But we needed something like that to target wider businesses in the economy that did not resolve or run like a small shop or what's not.
But when you say wider, how you mean you could say wider? Because in essence, it targeted this small man that would have been the hawker on the street, the taxi man, it's a salon. I mean, those are people that obviously make what I would call, no disrespect, hand to mouth money, meaning that, as soon as you get it, it gone.
Go back in.
And so those are the people, rather than saying, okay, which I thought was good, let's not prop up Williams Industry, which is known to be a conglomerate. So I think that it was widely spread, and they looked at all the affected businesses and were able to touch all of those affected businesses in essence. And even when the taxi men cried out, they too were involved. So I think that the government did a good job by trying to reach. Could they reach everybody like the van drivers wanted? No, but I think low and below, they were able to touch still a very large part of Barbados business sector with that stimulus package. So I would say kudos to that, because it really reached the people. Go ahead, Simon.
Kimar Stewart, and the point with small businesses. What COVID also showed is that we have a very big informal sector. Now, the problem with that is that if you are not contributing to NIS, if you're not contributing to taxes with your small business, it is hard then to argue consistently that you need assistance from government. Not saying you're not going to get the assistance, but it may not be at the level that you may want it. Because
no, you see what is important now to give to the NAS or to pay in NAS.
Right. Because the NIS basically is us. And then the money that is invested, they invest the money in different ways to get a surplus on it. You know, but the problem really is that we have a big informal sector in Barbados. So when COVID happened, like for example, I was talking about the schools. You know, we tend to look at schools and the students and the teachers, but there is so much economic activity around schools. From the person that has the taxi or the vehicle that does the private shuttle, that shuttle students to and from school to home, to the person that sells the snacks and the sweets and so on to the students outside the school, for the snow cone man, for the person that does the extracurricular activities that the students may be enrolled in, whether it is karate or whatever. So because of the extended lockdown, all of the economic activity around the schools, of course, would have suffered. So a lot of people say that, that COVID showed up, that we are too dependent on tourism. COVID showed up basically that everybody is dependent. Tourism is the hand that rocks the cradle. Don't let anybody fool you. Don't let anybody fool you, because at the end of the day, there are a lot of businesses, there are a lot of services that are not directly linked to tourism that still would have suffered.
Sorry. And I think, Simon, a lot of people are agreeing with you in terms of that. Keelan here is saying what hurts me most is that some of these businesses that want the stimulus package don't even pay VAT on time or don't even pay back into the NAS. And it goes again. I must say that I'm glad that the Prime Minister did not look at, welcome Shane Law, good economist there. One of the things I'm glad the Prime Minister did not look at, she was not petty in the sense that, oh, you don't pay, don't come. You don't do this, you don't contribute, don't come. I'm glad that she did not take that approach, but she was able to give packages beyond to people. And you know, a lot of people have to be thankful. You may not be able to reach everybody because you are borrowing money to help everybody. And I think that, you know, as I said, some of the businesses need now to look at how they conduct their affairs to be able to know that you have to contribute to be able to, you know, just in case things like these does happen. Go ahead,
I wanna
sorry, Jeremy, were we still right?
I wanna agree with the importance of NAS. I know there have been some issues surrounding the employers holding on to employees' NAS money and not paying it into coffers, which would have caused some persons not to receive NAS before the COVID. So I know that situation would have probably been worse since the registering the first case of the virus. So I think that in issues of the national insurance scheme and job security, we need to place a serious focus on job security and how employers would have treated to workers in terms of the severance, in terms of unemployment, and in terms of holding on to NAS. Because I know for a fact that and there's the issue of contract work where some employers, particularly in the same tourism hotel sector, have been offering contracts to workers to do the same exact work that a full-time worker would do, but for less.
Pay NAS for less. True.
So what they were doing was to allow you to work upwards of 9 months, then send you home, so that you don't have to meet the maximum work time of a year, so you don't qualify for NAS. And what they were also doing is to say that you're working for a day's pay. So if you work for example, $100 a day, even on days like bank holidays and Christmas and the like, where you were entitled to double pay, these contract workers were just getting the flat pay and not getting the benefits. So I think that coming through COVID, that allowed us to zero in on issues of job security, employment,
and labor relations.
Did you guys check the minister? Obviously, the minister of labor was in the Wells of Parliament today, as he discussed the labor, the whole situation around labor. And one of the things that came out of that meeting was the fact that they were talking about where people were, as you said, people were using the system of saying work for a couple of months and then think. But what they found out as well is that you were getting uniforms, so you're contracted to work as a contracted person, but the boss was still giving you uniforms, telling you what time to come in. And it's like, come work for me and don't work for me, same thing.
Personally.
You
I
had
had
that
that experience personally. So I had the uniform. I still came to work at a specific time, at the end of the specific time. And sometimes I felt cheated out of entitlements, given the fact that I sometimes was doing more work than people who had full-time jobs and being on staff. And for what they call temps or temporary workers, they sometimes abuse the system. So sometimes they cut your hours short and able to save on budgets. And I find that
I don't feel enough was done though, Kimar. Personally, I don't feel enough was really done to secure people. I don't think enough was done to attack the when it's attack, and they're using that very suppressive, but attack the employers, you know, enough. There weren't enough things that were said or done to really challenge them. And we even saw the issue with pre-Conco. We saw the issues with a number of persons walking off the jobs. We saw a lot of mini layer strikes, and where people were really being taken advantage. I really don't think that these, well, some may say that it's best not to trifle on the employers at this time because you don't want much more people to become unemployed. At the same time, can we sit back and allow for these employees to mistreat people? I'm an employer myself, and obviously for me, I would not want my staff to feel ill-treated, even so by me. And I think that stiffer penalties needed to be enforced. Even if we could switch a little bit, I think even when we talk about the penalties as it relates to those that were breaking the laws during COVID, I think that stiffer penalties needed to be imposed on them. Because these were big men and women putting not only themselves at risk, but putting a country at risk. Jermaine, I think you're going to need to mute your phone because I hear as you get.
You're hearing, sorry.
Right. So those were things that, you know, we needed to look at: stiffer penalties, stiffer fine. I find that, in some, as you said, when the ball was dropped, that some of the tourists were getting slapped on the wrist. Well, please, let me say disclaimer. I'm not trying to tell the courts of Barbados what to do, but in how we view it, that the Barbadians were going to jail while the visitors were made to pay a fine. I think the fine should have been 50,000 and up, and then let them go along and leave the money in the coffers.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. So, but you see, every case has to be tried. Sorry. Every case has to be. Sorry, man. Every case got to be tried on its merit too. You know, I read the circumstance of a young man who was getting CEG. You see, he had to get CEG or something to feed his family. Y'all saw that story?
Right.
So, I mean, that's not like a fellow holding a bram.
Thanks, Shane. Thank you.
Or holding a party or so on during lockdown. There's a man that says, look, I'm actively out there trying to get, I know what I did was wrong, but I out there trying to get little food for my family.
But does it make it right?
It doesn't make it right. But it doesn't make it right. So, but what I'm saying is that the fine or the penalty would have to be different for a tourist as opposed to a local who explains the situation. I mean, both of them, every situation got to be judged on its merit.
Let me
speaking about tourists, you have to go back to the point where tourists were breaking quarantine in the first place,
deliberately,
right? Yes. So I think that stiffer penalties need to be placed at the point of where tourists break quarantine, and then we could obviously look at stiffer penalties for locals who choose to come out and break the curfew, right?
Agreed.
I think breaking quarantine in the first place was the cause for these what they call super spreaders and the tourists jumping over walls and cutting off the bands. I think a heavy police presence was needed in that sense. Even I saw army patrols coming through the island communities, but I think that these persons needed to be placed at the hotel facilities because the visitors were really high risk was at. Right?
Yeah, and not only that too, going back to what you said, not only did they break curfew and, you know, they just flouted the laws. The main thing too is that even when they were out, they were not even wearing masks. They didn't care. Jermaine, you've been quite a bit, you want to jump in here about what you saw? Or what you
this is in relation, well, I guess I got to jump in from the beginning. The first thing I would say is that COVID is a new situation, obviously. And with the newness of the situation, the government of Barbados took action in accordance with actions which were taken worldwide by other governments. And obviously, as we saw, it was on a coordinated basis. Now I'm listening to both yourself and Kimar Stewart saying that tourists should be charged more than locals. But last time I checked, the laws were made equal for all men and women, right? Regardless of if you are a resident of Barbados or a non-resident. Honestly, and I'll say this, I think a fine of $50,000 is kind of excessive, right? I think that even some of the fines that we placed on persons, both local and tourists, were very excessive. This is
$7,000.
Yeah, hold on. Look,
Come on,
let's be real here, right? You say that COVID was mostly in the hotels, right? Now I have a big challenge with that because just as when COVID first hit and air travel around the world started to dwindle, mostly people that were coming to Barbados were not coming from England to vacation in Barbados, but there were a lot of Barbadian nationals who wanted to get back home, right? And I want to be real and say this, right? COVID affected Europe just as much as it affected Africa. So it is not a white disease and it is not a black disease, right? The same way that persons came from outside of Barbados, from England, who are non-resident in Barbados and brought COVID in Barbados, there were also local residents of Barbados who returned to Barbados and had the COVID virus. And then there were what you call non-resident returning nationals who came in to spend some time, and they also had COVID. And it is easy for us to target the white tourists that we see walking up and down without masks, but we forget that some of the same black people that we see in Barbados who say to us that they are Barbadians, that they don't live here. I remember I was reading a case about one girl who came from Switzerland, right? No, she's Barbadian, but she float quarantine too. All right. Now you would have seen her walking up and down the road. She could have bring COVID and spread to every man jack in Barbados, but we would not complain about her because she's black like us, and we only see color when we see this thing. All right.
I don't think that's fair.
I don't think that me or
I don't think that's what we were saying.
I never said that you only see color.
Wait, just give me a sec. I don't think that me or Simon sought to bring color into the discussion. The point was made that greater security needed to be placed at the quarantine facilities to avoid the floating of the laws, regardless of if the person came from Switzerland, Africa, Europe, whatever. The point is that you needed to stay in quarantine and follow the rules. So I don't follow your logic or your line of argument there, because we are not seeking to be disparaging in terms of.
But hear this, right?
But hold on, Jermaine. Just on that, I just want to add that even so, right? We had a recent, I don't know if anybody saw it, but we had a recent article, and where a gentleman came here. He called himself a sperminator or whatever.
Yeah,
and he made mention in his article. Glorious that he took off his band. He went, how can you come to Barbados and not go to the beach? And he was right there by the beach. And I agree with Kivar and everybody when we said greater security needed to be on these.
But you know, Kivar, you want to know something that struck me about traveling to Barbados during a pandemic? Now look, Barbados is a tourist.
It's not essential travel.
Right. But here it's Barbados is a tourist destination, right? Anyone who's coming to Barbados during the middle of this pandemic should be prepared to have the possibility of having to spend up to 14 nights in quarantine. All right. So for me,
you're saying that from you're saying that a tourist should be ready to spend a 14-day quarantine, right? That was your saying?
Of course.
At least 7 days now. At least 7 days now.
But that, you see, there's a problem there. Well, I agree with you. I could disagree with you in the sense that, on the sense of this. On average, a vacation is 2 weeks.
But
so when
on,
you
Kimar,
give up 2 weeks, no. When your boss give you 2 weeks of vacation and you give Barbados that in a quarantine hotel, you just lost that.
Hear me for a second. Any person seeking to come to Barbados.
Sorry, somebody also watching from Philadelphia just want to say, Thank you for watching.
Hey, Philly.
Okay.
Go ahead,
And-
Janelle.
Okay. Any person seeking to come to Barbados during the middle of a global health pandemic should be prepared to spend a minimum of 2 weeks in quarantine. And after that, so you can book your flight for 3 weeks. All right. Now, the reality is this. We try to accommodate persons for all sort of reasons in the initial stages of the pandemic,
But it
right?
helps
Right.
the staff.
And you know, this is where I'm gonna say this, right? The government of Barbados is now spending a lot of money that we would have gained in the initial stages of the pandemic, all right? Because we accommodated tourists, and it is costing us dearly now. In terms of having to get the personal protective equipment at exorbitant rates on the world market, even the reagents.
What's your thought on refunding?
No,
WA,
let me just let me finish for a minute. You look at all of the different costs. I saw any estimates that are being laid now. The government of Barbados has to spend $109 million.
What's your thought on also refunding those that would have been in quarantine longer than the set date?
You know, to be honest, that's a double-edged sword.
But you're talking about costs.
No, but hold on.
My whole thing is this. If I could jump in, the problem that the only way or the only reason you're refunding people is if you did not deliver what you promised. If you told visitors that when you get here, it's going to take you 3 days to get your test results, so then in 5 days, you're going to be out of quarantine, stick with it. But don't tell the tourists, but as you said, Jermaine, expect 10 days or 14 days, fine. But don't tell the tourists it can take 5 days, and then you as a destination, you don't deliver. That's bad for your
government. Just for clarity, the government has gotten the reagent, so 24 hours should be the time.
Hold on, was it understand what y'all guys are saying, right? So we tell tourists that if you come to Barbados and we don't get you your test results in 5 days, we're gonna refund you your money, right? But you do realize that we just come out of a whole month and a half long lockdown. And if I remember correctly, in the initial stages of the lockdown, it was almost like a 24-hour lockdown because all businesses were closed with the exception of about 3 or 4 categories of businesses in Barbados. What happens if you come to Barbados? You got a negative PCR test, right? And you come to Barbados, the country's open, and 2 or 3 days into your being in Barbados, the Prime Minister comes on TV and says, look, we have a situation in Barbados, and I instituting another 24-hour lockdown for the next 14 days or 21 days. But you only have another week in Barbados. So I'm using that point to say to you.
But she said you could come back.
But hold on. I'm using that point to say to you that a person who is stuck in the middle of a lockdown, right, really can't do nothing near the car. You can't get the beach, you can't get the supermarket, you can't do nothing. You gotta stay in your hotel room because if you're seen on the road, the police have the right, unless you have a legitimate excuse to where you're going and it is in line with the places that are open, you can be arrested. So
correct.
But then you basically agree with Kimar Stewart. Kimar, before you come in, Kimar, can I just read this one here from Pat? We compared to other countries, both large and small. Barbados did an excellent job initially with handling COVID. I live overseas, and so many persons are giving praise to Barbados, how Barbados was handling the disease. Reality is complacency stepped in. Go ahead, Kimar.
Well said on all parts. Correct. I agree with that.
I just want to take a couple of points from the fact that we had the tourists here, in the sense that government was willing to pay for transit for some tourists into the island, right? And we had one of the government's technical advisors trying to justify as to why the government would pay. And his logic was that a tourist on average spends more than the average Barbadian in terms of dollar figures. And we needed the foreign exchange in the economy, right? And then there was a heavy focus on the welcome stamp initiative and the remote work.
Which is doing well.
That's a very good initiative.
Very good.
Right. I think that the welcome stamp is a good plan. But my challenge, not really a challenge, but my drawback is that it reminds me of what I call a citizenship by investment program, right? So I am wondering now if government is on its way to having citizenship by investment given the fact that our tourist numbers are down, and other countries across the Caribbean.
You see that as a bad thing? You see that as a bad thing?
I will get there. I'll get there. Other countries across the Caribbean had citizenship by investment while they were on the IMF programs, and it actually brought them through the program kind of successfully. So I'm wondering and looking forward to if the government is looking in that direction as a policy option to come out to the pandemic. I will not say
Kimar, I can say to you unequivocally that the government of Barbados is not going that direction. I say that to you because I rewatched some speeches with the Honorable Mayor Maura Motley only this week. And in those speeches in the 2018 campaign, she made reference to the fact that that is not a policy position of the government of Barbados and not a position in which she is willing to go. So based on that, I am saying to you now.
That was pre-COVID, but now we're in COVID, and the situation warrants any response to get out. So you can't say and you're speaking like if you've been speaking to the Prime Minister yesterday. So to say that, she will say that. But what I'm saying is I will not say if I'm for or against citizenship by investment, because it has its pros and it has its cons. If you look across the Caribbean, many countries are having issues in terms of attracting what they call questionable characters, having diplomatic passports and actually selling passports. So that's really challenged. I'm saying for me, if you look at it from the investment side, you attract wealthy individuals who be able to come and invest in the country.
High network people.
Yes. But like I said, the drawbacks would be from the legal and diplomatic perspective, where the issue with the passport and how you would go about that. I don't have an opinion as to if I agree or not. I would have to give it some more thought and put it.
But I think it's not a bad thing because remember our population rate is very low, and I think we need to do more in any area to help our population grow, even if it means bringing in people from different parts of the world to join us, and if they come here and get children and then people become citizen by descent, if they can become the citizen by investment. But I think that we need to look at population growth. I think the Prime Minister have been echoing population growth for a small country, but people are very good at what it is. I'm seeing that here. Stop it, Barbados.
Kimar.
And if you want to measure governance of COVID, look at this social sector.
Kimar, before you get further, when you talk about population growth, I'm going to say something that's going to make me a bit unpopular, but I don't really care. Bajan women need to stop talking this foolishness about independence and buying into these white ideas and recognize that they need to get children, because what is going to happen is that if they come back to the earth 200 years from now, they will not be here as a black population. I don't care if it makes me unpopular by saying it.
But you know, to be unpopular because you comment, so it shouldn't be necessary.
But that's okay. That's one way of looking at it. But one of the reasons too, you gotta understand that education gives people aspirations. Education helps you to think outside the box. Education gives you a greater purpose. You see your life bigger and broader. So some people who are educated, like a lot of the young professionals, a lot of young professional women who would have done their first degree, they're going for their second degree, some they want to do a doctorate. They're not really, they want a partner, yes, they may want a relationship, but they may not want a child right now. And that is a woman's choice. A woman has the right to decide if or when she wants a child. I mean, as a female reproductive right.
I mean, as a married man with children, that's and if the wife said no more, it's no more. That's a decision that you can't just make on your own. Jermaine, you're going to help support these then?
Fellas, look at this point. Look at this point. When we were growing up, our grandmother had like 8, 9, 10, 11, sometimes 12, 13, 14, 15 children, right? But,
talking numbers there.
Yeah, after time went on, we see that people had less and less children. So now the average woman has 3 children, 2 children, the maximum now.
1.5, yeah.
Right? And I don't think it's necessarily that we just choosing not to have, but I think that one, fathers are absent and not really being in place to contribute to the upliftment of the households.
So Kimar, what you have to go after fathers?
Hold on, Jeremy, hold on.
Because in most cases it is.
I think the financial situation of the country has become harder in terms of the people, and the money is not stretching to be able to support that many kids. And I think that people are turning away from having children simply because it's not financially viable. It's kind of stressful as well in terms of your mental health and what's not to be able to raise children in this day and age. So
how do grandmothers and grandfathers get done?
But to answer it, let me answer it from a switch up position, because I'm in the field where I see it every day. I don't think at this particular point of time, well, the birth rate always speaks well, because it birth more Bajans, as Jeremy would quote unquote be putting it, and birth more Black people. At the end of the day, I think that we're going to need to look at start importing some people.
I disagree.
No, when I said to work, to bring
to work.
To be able to work and buy, once people buy, the economy is booming. The reason why I say so is that I find that even in my job with the homeless, is that the more that I'm seeing is more women and are becoming homeless, but they're becoming homeless with the children. And not only that they're also becoming homeless with your child and have another child in their belly. And the first child father isn't even paying that particular child any attention. I've only seen a couple of cases where fathers really step up, but we find that they step up when they found, when in my particular organization, I find that they step up when they realize the child is in a shelter or if the child is on the street. I find that also that the grandparents have stepped up, or family has stepped up greater than the fathers. So you have a case where the child is abandoned, but the father is not paying the child fees or helping the child, but the grandmother or mostly the grandmother or an aunt. I don't even see sisters or brothers doing it, but grandmother and aunt is picking up the slack of the father. So while it is easy to say, yeah, go and get more children from a female standpoint, I think that, and I will share, I agree with the men that and the women, that the men are not playing very good rules enough for me to say, female, go get more children. I would prefer at this time to say, if you're going to get more children, you may want to sit with that man first.
I find out that's what he wants.
I know if that is that we know that we're not, our intention most of the time when we get in bed with women is not to have sex, it's not to have children, it's to have fun. But the condom can burst, or you don't use condoms, and unintentionally a child come. So you have to ask yourself, if that happens, will you be willing to take and know that that person is serious? Because the person can say anything for pleasure.
Well, I intend on having children now, so anybody.
Well, so you're looking for a woman on the shore saying so? If you want to message Jeremy, message you privately so he can take care. But it says, and then so, but I think that, and somebody says it here, women usually shield men in their roles as father. They need to allow the men to start the children. And I agree with that. But I'm just saying that.
But there got to be more discussion about it. You hit on the point there. It's called family planning. You sit down and decide. Both parties got to be willing to sit down and decide if that's what they want.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, you have some women having children, but then there are others who don't want it. And there's some women I know, I got a couple of friends that they say, you know what? I ain't about that. I just want to push my career and be happy and comfortable.
What about the lockdown that you're in?
You know what's happening? When they get 40 and 45 years old, and even 50, they'll be breaking down the fertility center in Belleville and the place up in St. John.
But that's not fair, Jeremy.
But they probably have the money to do that then. They have the money to do it.
Here's the thing. Being home, right? Being home where a lot of people know are home in this pandemic, where my children are eating, like they're eating, like 20 people eating termite eating wood. And imagine now if the person that is getting children has multiple children, and we could go back to where the bag, where the government gave away the package. That package is only good for some houses, but for a minute. And they're going to have to look for something tomorrow. They're going to have to look for something for the next week. Imagine when for me, if it was just Kimar Safri, I could go and pick some breadfruits and carry somebody lime or sheep or goat, because it's just me. Yeah, ask as a better way of putting it. But in a case where you have to think about your children and multiple children, it's really hard. Yeah, Kimar.
It is.
So I wanna touch on a point quickly. So in the times when we had less technology available, people work for significantly less amounts of money, sometimes not working at all. How was it viable to raise between 7 to 10, 15 children or less? But in this day and age, when we are significantly more educated, we quote unquote richer, we have a lot more going for us, but it is not easier to have and raise kids. I think that something is fundamentally wrong there. In the sense that we got yes, Chairman.
I want to support your point, right? And I want to say to you that the only thing that has changed in our dynamics, apart from the economic circumstances, right, are the
Yes.
and I will again say that I will be unpopular for this, but it is the ideas that we as a people have allowed to be inflated into our minds. Because you're making a valid point. Your grandmother and great grandmother would have been working on a plantation. Your great grandfather, he probably was working in a cane ground. And they came together and had 9 children. Each child was fed. They grew up. Most of them got jobs in the civil service or in private sector Barbados, right? They also a lot of those persons are today very successful persons in society. A lot of those grandfathers back then, just as you said, they didn't have the time to go and visit all them children. And remember, you ever heard about the concept of the village ram? All right.
Correct.
Right. So I mean, all that happened back then. All right.
But you still have to be careful to German in the sense that when we look at my grandmother had 15,
See?
15, but no, there was a reason for that. The reason for that was that my grandmother stayed at home while my grandfather went and worked.
He was the only breadwinner.
And he was the breadwinner. So when he came home, obviously she was always there. She didn't have to worry about education. She didn't have to worry about job. She didn't have to worry about a number of things because he kept everything on the table. In our society of today, where you have both genders working, it is somewhat difficult for any of us to get 15 children unless you're running about with multiple women. And even I'm a busy man. I don't see myself looking or even aiming past 3, 4 children. So just know that because it is hard, and it's harder because also in our today's society, I used to go by my neighbor before, and I'm still young, but in 10, 15 years ago, I could have go by my neighbor and ask for breadfruit. 10, 15 years later, my neighbor wants to sell me that breadfruit. So everything, even line that you could have get from neighbors is not at a cost. And so where you could have used the village to help raise the child.
The village at work now. The village at work now.
And it's much harder. So I would not push anybody or encourage anybody to get so much children. And even so, we're becoming expensive. Now look at it, bus fare is $3.50. On average, to send school some children is $14 a day. And if you're getting $2.50 below the minimum wage per week, what are you going to do? Work to send school to send each up on a bus, right? Because in most cases, they got the food on the belly.
I want to introduce a different trajectory from your point and agreeing with your point. If we look back at going back to the COVID situation, if we look at majority of the unemployment lines, I don't see that many whites or I don't see that many Indians in the unemployment line, right? But they coexist in Barbados with us.
But how do they coexist? I think that's the question to Kimar.
They have their own system.
Silently growing the population.
So what I'm saying is that if they coexist with us, but for some reason the unemployment and the ravages of the COVID most affected Black households, then we need to look at how we're making our money in Barbados. And going forward, those persons affected with the pandemic will have to look at if having just a simple job, be it low skilled or what's not, is ideal for survival. How they could look at different streams of income, how they could look at earning money so that in time, because I don't believe COVID is pandemic that we're going to go through. So how do we know as a Black low, quote unquote low income people look at survival? So if we look at the incomes to the two communities that I would have listed, they're the business owners. Some cases they own the sellers, you know, they own some
Generational wealth.
supermarkets and the conglomerates and what's not and the like. And I keep hearing persons from the finance ministry keep talking about economic enfranchisement. So coming out to the COVID, I want to see particularly persons who would have been affected by the pandemic to look at different streams of income and survival, right?
Kimar, it started. It has
Yes,
started to something, but you continue.
yes, and seek ways of because you become dispensable when you're kind of quote unquote low skill, right?
Become
So I
obsolete.
want us, yes, and as technology comes on stream, as we get digitization and the world is going in terms of AI and artificial technology, a lot of the jobs that we had and have in Barbados can become obsolete, which means we can have a bigger unemployment problem. And as I rightfully say, look at who unemployment affects, mainly lower income blacks, right? So I think this is outside. This is the government can help, but this is a
Outside
personal,
government.
or this is a
You know,
personal.
I want to ask you guys. I
sorry,
want to ask you
just
guys a question
hold a
here.
minute. Just make sure we focus on the lockdown because we touch on that topic for a while.
Yeah.
It just to we need to probably bring a show on the whole conversation of how do the blacks survive among the whites and whites survive among the Indians and look at that, because I think without obviously being sensitive to that so that nobody don't think that we are being racist, but just
Right.
look at how they are surviving versus us, how we are surviving. And I think that that is a very interesting comment, because in most cases a smaller population obviously survive in some countries greater than some. So if you go into a country and you have a very dense population of people, you find that you're more successful because you can band together within a community and call yourself a community. Whereas in Barbados, you may have, much more blacks than Indians. So the Indians are able to survive because they're very close knit.
Close ranks.
So, and you can easily, just like some faith, like the Saibaba or the Muslims or the 7 Days, they're able to survive because of the close knit community. Well, Christians have several denominations, which makes it harder to survive. So we can look at that. But if you can go back on the based on the people here that are commenting.
I want to ask.
Jeremy, I just want to read some more. Jeremy, you and your wife can have as many kids as you want, no problem with that. Sorry, some more comments coming in. Oh, good Lord, let me start.
I don't have a wife.
Hold on.
Currently looking for a wife.
Some of these young men that have girls, these girls having children for doing work, some of the mothers to be doing work either, and who has the burden to bear? That's a good one. I agree with Kimar, this is Sandra, but for me, I was able to assist and have income coming in from angles due to my educational background.
That's right,
Pat is saying the whites and Indians give each other opportunity. We black pull down each other.
Said.
In most instances, can't stand to see each other succeed. That is very good. Somebody said,
that's a fact.
There are businesses that are operating because of diversity due to small consumer market. All right. Stuart no make Aline shock or somebody else. What do you realize is that every child a woman has takes something away from her body. I'm not talking about shape. She's also talking about health. Some people say here is some mindset when it comes to this. If Barbados don't get more children, inflation will kill us off for the left. That is what some comments were. I just wanted to read. John Herbert is coming in and saying, it was always hard to have too many children. It was always expensive. It was as hard then and difficult maybe harder. Many went hungry, underfed, little clothing, went to school without shoes. Many were uneducated and some had to leave school permanently. I'm just sharing that. I find it difficult to read because they're looking at 2 lights. But yes, so just on that. Go ahead. You have something to say, Jeremy?
Yeah, I was trying to make the point now. So we are in the middle of the global health crisis, COVID. The government of Barbados obviously has put in place initiatives to assist small business people. They have also put in place initiatives to assist the larger conglomerates or the larger businesses in Barbados. What I want to say is this. When we look at the fact that 90% of our tourism product is basically devastated now, Barbados is more or less surviving based on our retail and distribution sector and our manufacturing sector now, and also the offshore business sector. Because the honest truth is that the tourism product isn't really producing anything for Barbados now. But we have placed most of the recovery funds to the tourism side of business. All right. Now, I think this is a perfect opportunity. Well, we know the government of Barbados put, I think, $300 million in place for the tourism industry. I think this is a perfect opportunity that the government of Barbados could invest more in small and medium-sized businesses in Barbados as a measure to ensure their continued survival. Because let's be real, it is these very same businesses which are not getting the investment, as much investment now as the tourism industry, are the ones which are more or less carrying the Barbados economy now. It is these industries which are employing people. It is these industries which are paying taxes, paying VAT. It is these industries which, as I indicated previously, are carrying the Barbados economy. And given that this is happening, yes, the tourist dollar is important, foreign exchange is very important, but foreign exchange, as I said, comes from the tourists just as much as it comes from the people that we export products to outside of Barbados. So I think at this given time, the government of Barbados should seek to shift focus. I would say if you invested $300 million in the tourism product, do $150 million or even $100 million stimulus program for small businesses in Barbados, small and medium-sized businesses, as a measure to let those businesses grow to another level. Because the truth is, nobody wants to know that I had a small business, I pass it on to my son, and it remains a small business, and 3 or 4 generations later, it is still a small business. You hope for growth. And this is the perfect opportunity where government, as the main financier, can actually put a program in place. Now, bear in mind that the government of Barbados is borrowing loans at 1%. So the government can borrow a loan at 1% and lend the small businesses at 2 or 3%. Because, as I said, the domino effect is so great, it can really help Barbados as a whole. We cannot only focus on tourism, because tourism is good. But look at what one little virus that we can't even see due to an entire tourism industry.
But let me ask a question though.
It's not just tourism that was impacted. Remember that, Jermaine.
But if I can ask you more question, right? If I can ask you more question, because I don't necessarily agree with Jermaine as it relates to small business is what is keeping the economy going. Because
I said small, medium, and large businesses.
Okay, well, let me put small, because there's a lot of small business that do not pay taxes.
Thank you.
You understand? A lot of small business do not, so they don't pay, and a lot of small business owners do not even invest into the NIS scheme. Now,
right, hold on, Kimar, before you go any further, right? I
don't want to lose my train of thought. You get a chance to rebuttal to me.
I'm not saying it, but I want to say this to you. Because some person does not pay money into the NS scheme, nor they don't pay PAYE on a yearly basis, it doesn't mean that that person doesn't buy stocks and supplies from other businesses in Barbados and pay VAT. It doesn't mean that that person doesn't contribute in the economy in Barbados.
But you buy,
they go to the pump to buy gas, they're gonna pay a gas.
You buy those things. You buy those. Hold on,
Jermaine. So they contribute in a way.
But that doesn't take a small bit. That does not take from us. That does not mean that's a small business. That's an everyday body.
But they're contributing.
Hold on. I have to go to the pump. I have to buy stock. I have to buy stock.
And you still got to pay VAT and PAYE, right?
So at the end of the day, it's not just the small. What I'm saying is, when I look at Bridgetown and I see that there's a number of businesses in Bridgetown who fall below the threshold, yes, of not having to pay legally,
right? Obviously,
that they're not contributors to the economy. I know people that travel overseas and
they
bring
are
back.
contributing,
Hold on, Jeremy.
just not in the way that you think they should.
Jeremy, hold on. There's small
Even
businesses.
the main point that is right by bikes or sandals is contributing to the economy.
You are missing the point. They're not. I know people that leave Barbados that have stores and come back with 6 and 7 suitcases and do not even pass customs to be able to pay on that as a duty. And they have what I'm saying is most, and as I am a small businessman and in some of the businesses, and I understand because many times we don't fall with any threshold. I'm not saying it's illegal or anything doing it is illegal. What I'm saying they don't fall within it. So they're not major contributor. And also where they're saying if you're registered as a small businessman, you're supposed to play what you call self-employed tax, NAS. We don't even do that. So many things we're not contributing. Now, when you said the thing about small business persons are holding up the economy, it's not necessarily true.
I never said small business people alone.
Okay, well, just small, because during COVID, only certain sectors were able to open. So they were and those were operating on
markets and so on.
Staff. So they were not even there. Some people still, every sector was hit hard, and every sector had a cut back drastically. So don't think that because yes, we have to relook tourism, but remember the majority of people that went home was from tourism. So before you hard hit the tourism, you have to look at what can we put in place to be able to hold up that 60-70% people that work in the tourism sector before you can say, let's relook it. Sorry, we remove it. We have to relook or revamp it before we think. Kimar, you want to jump in?
Yeah. I wanted to touch on what you were saying and a bit on what Jeremy was saying. If you look at the business sector, right, most of what they contribute in terms of payment to government coffers will be VAT, income tax, corporation tax. Pardon?
Probably with the old government long rather than paying it.
It's true. The customs, you made the point about going overseas, so customs duties, and in some instances, import duties, right? The problem is a lot of businesses operate outside of these tax bands, right? Maybe with the exception of VAT in some instances as where they have some inputs to their businesses that they will have to pay VAT to purchase them locally, right? But I think that Jermaine was right in some instances when he said that the private business community propped up the economy, which is true. If we look at the numbers in terms of like VAT collection only went down when there was a lockdown period, but otherwise it was still trending in terms of its historical norms. So it showed us one or two things, that locally Barbadians spend on average significant amount of money that could keep up the economy if tourists are not here, which opens
Did we spend enough to pop out the economy if we were only spending money in certain sectors?
We were locked down, so you can see it.
Yes, and we were locked down. So imagine a case where we are not on lockdown and Barbadians are given the chance to be empowered so that they could spend locally. I think that we could reduce the dependency.
But when you say spend locally, what did we really spend locally on other than the food?
Okay, so, but if you look back at the
essential item was forced to be spent on, so we didn't have a choice.
Wait. If we look back at the businesses that were allowed to operate during the lockdown, right? I can remember the supermarkets for sure. You were allowed to get gas.
You mean this last lockdown, or you're talking in general?
Transport.
I'm talking about in general.
So you're talking
right?
about transport was only supposed to be at 60%, so that even cut revenue for them drastically.
Right.
So
at
60%.
And there was still some commerce available locally, right? So my point fundamentally is that yes, the business sector is what really propped up the country during the lockdown period. And I think that and I agree with Jermaine here that we need to couple like $100 million to invest in the business sector. Not
I would agree. I would agree.
Players, but for sure the small players, and allow expansion of small businesses and allow these businesses to grow to medium businesses.
But also restructure.
And we also got to bring them in. We also got to bring them out from the informal. Yeah, we got to bring them out from the informal sector into the formal sector too. That's what we need to do.
You know what I also wanted to mention here.
Before you go on,
sorry.
Right. So when we come out to the COVID, we're gonna have to go on basically what we call a job spree, where the country, and not putting the onus on government, but we're gonna have to go to get a significant amount of jobs available in Barbados, to bring back what we call a semblance of respect in terms of spending. So if we could have at least if you go on a mission to get 20,000 jobs, just following the Prime Minister's train of thought here, where she had the jobs and investment council, where aim was to get 20,000 jobs. Let us say we have 20,000 jobs. I don't foresee that these 20,000 jobs are going to be available in the public sector and government. I foresee that they're going to have to come from the private sector. So this is where the stimulus will be important, so that the government is able to achieve that goal of 20,000 jobs, but not relying on government coffers in terms of wages coming out of the government books to be able to have that impact.
Kimar, what I want to add to what you're saying, right? It is so interesting what you're saying about not relying on government for the jobs. Now, I remember a few months ago, I saw the government of Barbados advertise, not advertise, there was an article in the local media where the government indicated that they were going to start some programs to jumpstart the economy through road works projects and that sort of stuff.
Capital works.
Capital works projects. And someone put on Facebook, the only thing that any government does ever do in terms of jumpstarting the Barbados economy is to always want to come and give people construction jobs. Now, see, during COVID, the one economy that grew during COVID was the digital economy. Look at the fact that persons who
agriculture grew as well too.
But I turn in agriculture as well now. Persons who had a closed store, or even persons who selling fruits, right? They had to advertise their products to you via WhatsApp, Facebook, whatever means that they could. Even persons that had gyms, all right? If you had a bank account, persons were giving you their bank account information and saying transfer the money from your account to my account. I remember during COVID, the only way you could pay bills was you had to more or less use a bank account. So even a lot of the older folks whom we often complain don't want to have bank accounts, they were forced to get bank accounts, and they were forced to start utilizing the technology, all right? You see that during COVID, Shafet decided, you know what? We can no longer depend on people to come to us. We gonna come to you, right? So Shafet launched a whole fleet of vehicles, right? Everybody in Barbados who has a business now does what you call deliveries, right? Everybody in Barbados who got a business ensures that they have a bank account that they can receive funds, right? Now, it is not the full digital economy, but it is a trend in the right step. And you know what is interesting? This impetus that was done for VAT wasn't initiated by large businesses in this country. You see the small man that Kimar Safri ain't really that fully concerned about. Those are the ones who recognize of that economy. Right? Those are the ones who recognize that doing that is what will actually benefit them and help grow their businesses. Right, to the point now that we got. I remember I was talking to a farmer during the lockdown last year, and he said to me, Jermaine, honestly, I could not stop selling my products. Like he said, he has so much products to sell now that he had to bring on people. He went into supermarket. I'm not going to call these supermarket names, but supermarkets in Barbados were forced to take his products. They called him, they let him show them the products. When the products came in, they realized that he had good quality products. They paid him online, right? He said to me that they told him, look, usually he said one supermarket told him on a yearly basis, we just import this amount of cabbage, right? And if you can guarantee us that you can supply us with these cabbages next year, we will give you the contract. Now, I understand, yes, that persons will always seek the cheaper alternatives. But you know what COVID has shown a lot of the businesses in Barbados? Instead of looking for the cheaper alternatives, you have to look for the continuity of supply or secure demand supply chains. All right.
I can flip
want to
down.
make a point.
Hold on, Kimar, before you think, I just want to read some comments. Yeah, I just want to read a comment.
Yeah.
But just I want to correct Jermaine too. Kimar Stewart, the funds will allow many to become formal. John Herbert is saying there is no such thing as spend locally when most of what we consume are imported. He also goes on to say, without the forex earning, which is foreign exchange, capacity of the, sorry, I'm just somebody like it out there. Capacity of the economy, it is not possible to keep an economy going. Somebody said people can get into collusion with each other as if they can't supply the supermarket chain. Just Kimar, before you hand over to you, just to correct Jermaine, I am a small businessman. I would never be against funding small business. What I'm saying is we need to structure small business. On top of that, if I may add, just to give you a flip side of your story. Well, you have a friend that has been doing good based on selling products and services to the supermarket. I can tell you that here at the organization, I have benefited from so much food that was not sold.
Okay.
I had people that had bananas that could not sell, cabbage that could not sell, lettuce that could not sell, carrots that could not sell, because the same supermarkets were still importing. The same supermarkets were only because at certain times only certain businesses were able to operate. And I had a bucket load of goods and coming to this organization that I was able to share with a lot of organizations. So there is a flip side to some were doing well,
and some were not.
Some were not. So just to show on that flip side, everything is in moderation. I believe that more needs to be done in the agriculture sector. And you use a word that you have that I agree with you. A lot of things that happen right now happen because COVID forced it to happen.
Of course.
The question is no, that as we move back into opening, is that going to still be that man that you talk about, that friend that you talk about? Are they still going to be able to sustain these particular supermarket? Are these supermarket going to still be buying from us, the local people? And that is the question. Go ahead, Kimar.
Yeah, I want to agree with the person that's saying a lot of what we consume is imported in terms of business inputs, right? Small economies like Barbados and the region, we don't really produce anything much. So even our manufacturing,
we can't meet supply to demand.
Yeah, our manufacturing capacity, even if it's food, medicine, oil, anything that's needed to run economies, we really don't produce, right? You just don't have the size in most instances, and we don't have the capacity to produce competitively. So we forced to import, right? Not in every instance that I believe we could roll that back and start to get some type of
I'll put a cap on it, Kimar. Put a cap on how much we import. If government would do our Minister of Agriculture would do a survey to ask you, okay, how much black belly sheeps are produced in a given year? And we find out that we consume, let's say Barbados consume 30% black belly sheep in our poultry lineup, right? And we were to say, okay, Barbados could produce on average 20% out of that 10%, out of that 30%, then there should be a cap of at least 15%, where Barbadians are given that 15%, hands down, and they can import the other 15%.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think there's already a program in place for the BADMC, which
you mean the cap on chicken wing? That get people fired, yeah.
But in terms of some vegetables and what's not,
more or less.
Right. Some vegetables and what's not. We got the black belly sheep program, and we have a honeybee program as well. We're trying to increase bee production and honey and what's not. So there is a.
Are we capping them? I mean, are we capping them because these are still things that I will hear the Barbados Agricultural Society crying out about on eggs, on poultry, on chicken wings.
remember that there are some persons who, and just I can be a little cautious here, who lobby government for some legislation not to be changed, because some people benefit from the inefficiencies of government. So if the government,
if we all could benefit, we'd be rich.
if the government does not put a quota on the importation of some goods, that benefits some entrepreneur to keep him importing so that he could continue making a profit. So
and government continue making money too.
But remember, Kimar, World Trade Organization rules as well, huh?
Right. Yeah, I was not about to get there in terms of we signed on to some international treaties which do not allow us to put tariffs and quotas on some imported goods from some areas. So what's going to happen in the next couple of months, next year or two, is that imported goods from the European Union can no longer have quotas and tariffs and some duties on it, which means that our borders are not going to be open to European goods coming in, which makes it more hard and competitive for local production to happen for some things, right? So these are issues we're going to have to deal with. Jeremy made a point earlier that I really wanted to respond to, in terms of whenever something happens, the government want to give you a construction job, right? In terms of construction, I think that great discussion is needed in terms of construction, and especially now for the next year with the capital works projects coming on stream, the construction project, so we can see community centers going up, a couple of roads and things like that. But outside the jobs for those persons who are able to participate in that pool of work, it's not going to benefit the wider society. Who's going to benefit really is the contractor, right? And more than likely,
only a few contractors.
Right.
But the money still going to pass through the economy too. Remember that.
But wait. More than likely, these high-end contractors find means and ways for the money not to pass through our economy, and is usually funneled overseas and stored in other countries like St. Lucia and those places.
The same tourism product y'all talking about too.
Which offers better rates and returns on investments and what's not. So I foresee the plans to have the capital works construction projects. That's a good thing, but the end game to it is that government needs to find a way to trap the money to come back and reinvest in the local economy so that Barbadians continue to benefit from government expenditure.
You know,
and the only way that can work is with incentives. Let me read two comments
first. Let me read two comments first. Hold on. Let me read two comments first.
Sure.
Wayne is saying, since food was the major item sold during COVID lockdown, many businesses have added grocery items to their products offering. Somebody commented, will this cause person to move away from the original product and service? What will be the future of local business and retail sector? Capitalism is based on competition and protectionism. Only a few, they said that will also import labor.
All right. Getting back to the point I made with reference to government doing capital works projects, and Skimar correctly said mostly only being able to offer construction jobs. Now, I built a property, right? And the one thing that was amazing was that there was as much as we say that there's high unemployment in Barbados, right? There's a shortage of skilled workmen in this country. Now, I remember when the Barbados Labour Party was going to polls in 2018, night after night after night, Prime Minister Motley on platforms emphasized the point that she had met so many young people who did not know what it meant to have a routine, to be able to get up on mornings and say that they're bathing and making breakfast and getting ready to go to work. And a lot of those young persons were the recipients of free university education, having been in possession sometimes of 1 and 2 degrees, right? And, as I said, the government is now doing capital works projects which will not benefit them. Now, this is why I say it can tie back into the point I made earlier when I said that the government should now put in place a stimulus program of around, say, $100 million, right? You seek to truly invest in your people, because whilst you are, and this is a problem that I have often had, right? Successive governments come into power in this country and they talk about the middle class. But in terms of actually helping persons to get in and remain in the middle class, it doesn't really happen. If you look at how funds are allocated in this country, funds are allocated, yes, for free education, healthcare, and that sort of stuff, which are mandatory things in my view. But in terms of actually helping persons now, a lot of funds are allocated to persons at the lower end of the spectrum. And then a lot of funds are allocated for big ticket projects, which will help the very rich in this country. So the persons in the middle are continually squeezed. Yet the persons in the middle are the ones whom you market yourself to every 5 years. And the persons in the middle are the ones who you promise to assist. Look, I'll say this to you. There are persons in the middle in this country who, during this COVID pandemic, they lost the jobs. They had no food to eat, just like the persons at the bottom. Mortgage, just like the persons at the bottom, they were juggling between paying light bill, phone bill, water bill, and different bills in this country. Some of them, in some households, you had 2 persons who work in hotels. So they were both laid off, awaiting checks from the National Insurance Scheme, taking forever to come. And those persons are not the ones who will be the recipient of the $600 or the $800 from the Prime Minister's office. Those persons are not going to be lucky enough to get food hampers coming to them. In fact, even when the distribution of foods were going out the other day, the care packages, those care packages did not enter middle-class neighborhoods, but there were a lot of people in middle-class neighborhoods who were suffering. There are a lot of people who live in middle-class neighborhoods who can't pay the mortgage. They can't pay the house rent. There are a lot of people in middle-class neighborhoods that's suffering. A lot of people in the middle-class neighborhoods, cars get tech up and the sketch bus, but they ain't gonna tell you nothing. So I am saying to you that when we devise and design programs in this country, there have to be programs which are inclusive. It is not sufficient to just come and say, hey, I'm giving you free education, free healthcare, fixing roads, and that sort of stuff. That's good. That's your responsibility. That's your social responsibility as a government. But in terms of actually bringing projects to bear, which will change dramatically the lives of people. Look, let me say this to you: a man who is considered as lower middle class, he will, like anybody else, wants to become an upper middle income person. Just as the person who's considered as lower income won't become upper or lower middle income. So we have to bring programs. And when I say we, I say the government, because the reality is that in as much as we are sometimes are not the ones who are recipients of the largesse of government, it is those same persons who are called upon to carry the Barbados economy day after day after day. And I'm saying this, right? You see a lot of them hotels that we assisting with the $300 million. A lot of them got 25-year agreements in this country. A lot of them don't pay a cent in taxes, right? And in fact, there are some of them that when it comes to buying local products, they tell you that they have to buy products from their home country, right? Or their home brand. And when you look at the contribution that they make to the Barbados economy, the only contribution that they may make is to provide a few Barbadians with jobs as maids, housekeepers. You might be lucky to become a barman, a bar manager, or something so. But look at the big ticket jobs: general manager, deputy general manager, financial controller, operations manager. All of the top level, the executive positions in these same hotels that we are assisting with $300 million of Barbadian taxpayers' money go back to their home countries. And then we get the few hotels which are locally owned. You know, the sad reality of it is that those persons that own the hotels locally, instead of employing Barbadians and in the senior positions, they then go outside of Barbados and they bring in well, I'm a non-national, but I'm a Barbadian national now. But they're going to bring in other non-nationals in this country to take the very same funds and send back to their metropolitan.
But Jermaine, one of the things I understand is that we have to, well, I agree with what you're saying. Don't get me wrong, we have to look at with this 300,000 is government
300 million.
300 million, sorry, is government negotiating anything with it? And I think that there were some things, and we could probably get a hold of that to see with this 300, what is the negotiation? Because I know certain hotels that the government don't really make money other than the room levy, because these persons would book their tickets, or these persons would book on the outside in terms of the thing. But there's only one feel of it. But we need to look at what is it that government is now saying, okay, you want this to access this money, are you going to agree to bring 30%? Now, in terms of the general managers of hotels, I don't mind, because there's certain big hotels I know that I watched, like, if, for example, Simon, you've been with me for 25 years in China, and you've been running Safri's Hotel, and I said to you, well, go Barbados and run Barbados Hotel, because you understand the chain, or you understand the work, or you understand the hotel, you've been in it, and not just like giving it to any new person. So in that, there's also some context to that. One of the questions I would like to change before we wrap up, though, is that today on the radio, I heard Peter Wickham, as a poster, and it came across the news as well, talking about an early election. Now, and I want to take back into what we're discussing today. How do you perceive seeing an early election in a lockdown? If we could possibly be looking at having COVID with us till next year with this same time, or even beyond, how do you perceive seeing a election? You think it's a right call to have election rather than letting it go to the 2023, or because of not the unreadiness of parties, they can't take Kimar? I sure know you're gonna want to take this here.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say I don't want to say if it's the right call or not. But what I will say though, I definitely think that we're gonna have an early election, because if you look at the amount that was budgeted for under the electoral boundaries head in the estimates,
How much?
It was around like 2.9 million.
Okay.
And the usual figure is just a couple of $100,000. So that clearly indicates that there's election on the horizon. The further cement the point, if we look back to the year 2018 when the general election was held, the figure was like 4 million. And otherwise, that is not that high. Right. So I definitely know the elections coming. We had a couple of elections across the Caribbean in the COVID, Jamaica, St. Vincent, at
Grenada
Trinidad, Trinidad, Bermuda, Turks and Caicos. So elections in the middle of COVID is nothing foreign or outlandish. The concern for me would be election campaigns, and how now do we encourage persons to gather and to socialize for the hyper elections, given that we were saying social distance all along.
Kimar, we had an election last year in Barbados.
The by-election was virtual.
Right. So what I am saying, or what I am gonna say here is, will the government allow for a relaxation of protocols for a free and fair general election based on traditional height?
I think that they would do, Kimar, based on if we can get. I don't know that we are under the 5% mark of the COVID per day. I would think that we will get a by-election general election. When I said by-election general election, just like what Tony Moore had, where you could still attend the events, mass up, you could still social distance. If you come in a group, stay in your group. So I do perceive that you can have a relaxed. I think that if we are not to have a election like what we saw in the general election, in the by-election, would be based upon us, how much we allow for the rating to go back over 5, and not necessarily that the prime minister would want not to have a fear, and which will give people enough chance to go and see their candidates.
My only query would be, why we having a general election so early? And why
it could be another reason.
I think obviously the obvious reason would be if you're in a position of strength. If you're in a position of strength, or you believe that your chances, or you believe that your chances at the polls will be greater in your favor, you call the election.
Because honestly, if you look across the Caribbean, though, all of the governments I just listed had early elections. So I think
because your opposition is not ready. If your opposition is not ready, what gives them
at the time is strategy. It's strategy.
And that's with the candidates out there. I'm afraid that she keeping candidates as close to she best as possible. Why don't she say lash when the iron hot?
I want to jump in here quickly. I will say this to you guys, all right? Having a early election, it could be a good thing and it could be a bad thing. All right. Now, I think we are like 3 years into the term of the Barbados, like the first term of the Barbados Labour Party government into office in this particular time. So realistically, I personally think elections are going to be somewhere around June next year. Right? No,
it could be called in June in time to finish before November. That's what I'm predicting.
Right. But this is what I'm saying, right? The Prime Minister and the Cabinet and the 11 members of Parliament who I now realize they're all Barbados Labour Party members, right?
With the exception of one. You gotta give that with the exception of one.
He's still a B. He's still a B.
Hello, he might have PDP. PDP, not the happy. Get him on the yacht. He won't.
He's still a B, but
he won't. He's a bit heart. He's a bit heart.
All right, hold on. But he's still wearing red tie, right? Like Simon going, he red shirt.
He switch a bit.
But okay, but the
Mark, let's keep Mark got money back.
But the reality is this, though, right? The Barbados Labour Party is just coming out of. Let me list out some of the achievements why I think an early election would be a good thing now. The Barbados Labour Party came into government and they were able to restructure the government debt and take Barbados out of a pending economic catastrophe. Sadly, after doing that, the government had to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. Thus far, the government has managed COVID as good as really it could be handled, right? I think the government has looked at the variables which are in front of it, and the government has utilized those variables to act mostly in the interest of all Barbadians. Now, with the exception of the few things that we raised, which the government has the opportunity between now and next year to correct, the government is doing progressively well. The vaccine rollout is going well, and if we are able to achieve herd immunity by sometime in the middle of this year, then the government can then start focusing on growth of the Barbados economy. Now, I will say this to you: after Christmas, and after you got the rush for Christmas and the growth spurt that you have, as long as the virus does not act back up, and we are able to, and the government is able to show at least 3 straight quarters of positive growth in this country, right? And when it's a positive growth, I mean in terms of the GDP and also the levels of unemployment dropping, right?
A bit.
If the government is able to show that, and then also show that business activity is on the uptick in this country, and even the famed tourism product is slowly returning, then I think Barbadians would be very averse to giving the Barbados Labour Party a second term, right? The only thing we will have to wait and see now is what the numbers will be, right? And when you have all of those, no, not turnout. I'm talking about in terms of the seats that you would get, right? Because you can get from 16 seats straight up to 30 again, right? Now, when you have
30 seats,
huh?
You foresee another 30 low?
Hard.
I don't want to say that openly because if they say that openly,
at this point, you can't say so with the unreadiness of the Democratic Labour Party. If the Democratic Labour Party brings candidates that the people of Barbados can get, then you can say, okay, we think that with these particular people, we can get 2 to 3 out of the Democrat. But the Democratic Labour has not bring any.
All right, but the reality is, though, I will say this, right? When you have all of that good going for you, the best thing to do is to call the election now. And not now, but at the time that I mentioned. But and let me tell you the reason why I say that. A day in politics is a long time in politics, because just as much as the government could have just about a year to transform, to glide on this wave, and based on certain predictable factors, be able to say, well, look, by next year June, this is where we hopefully should be. You know that after next year June, and things start going downhill, then Barbadians will, because this is something that successive leaders of this country have said, Barbadians got very short memory. So Barbadians will remember the good that you do today, but tomorrow they're going to blurt out the bad that you do too. So if you have the opportunity that you could call the election and you could comfortably march back into Parliament, I would say to the Prime Minister, call the election, get your second term, right, and continue with the job at hand, right?
Because Jeremy, even if she called election, right, to be honest with you, let's say she called election in July, which we got, let's say August, September, October, which I think election is due 3 months after. It's 3 or 6 months.
No, elections is June, the following May the following year.
No, I'm talking about election. 90 days after you call the election. Right. Because I doubt she will want to go to November, because November will put us at the independent. Don't forget, we're supposedly changing over to a republic.
But we're talking about this year. We're talking about next year.
No, I'm talking about next year. I'm not talking about this year. What I'm saying for the next year, even if she calls it in July, it will be July, August, September, or she could call it August, September, October, right?
But Kimar,
November and leave December. And if she does that, hold on, if she does that, all it would be is 3 months away from the election, the due date for election. Because don't forget, election is originally due in February. But Kimar, administration held us ransom for 3 extra months. So I'm
going to make a point to you that knowing Prime Minister Motley, I cannot see Prime Minister Motley making the foolhardy, ignorant mistake that former Prime Minister, thank God, Friendle Stewart made, right?
By keeping
an election 90 days later. The longest that a general election campaign should be
90 extra days later.
Right, but the longest that I would say a general election campaign should be is 4 weeks. You come in, say what you're gonna say, message out, and get out the election.
8 weeks, 4 to 8 weeks.
We supposed to be talking
8 weeks, Simon. 4 weeks.
COVID election, but here's what I'm saying. Constitutionally, it could only be 90. It got to be held 90 days after, so you won't want to deprive people. And even when people were saying Tony Moore, COVID election was, quote unquote lockdown election was.
Skimmer, constitutionally, it has to be held 21 days after you declare. Huh? 7 days for nomination, 14 days after nomination is when
I don't want a 4-day election. I don't want a 4-day. I want to give people enough time. I would like to see people get enough time to be able
I can't hear you.
I said I would like to see people get enough time.
Can't hear you.
I don't know. You can't hear me? Everyone can hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear Kimar though.
Well, that's Jeremy, which is a good thing. But yeah, I can hear you, Jeremy. Everybody can hear me.
I can hear you, Jeremy.
I can hear Kimar.
Oh, I don't know. It's just probably a little break, I think. You can hear me good now?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. But anyhow, gentlemen, I think we had a fruitful discussion.
I think so too.
We had a thing, we were looking at the lockdown. We had about 164 comments, which is a lot for first day back, over 35 steady viewers with people dropping in and out. But again, we just look at a number of things that happened during the lockdown. I would say, that again, the lockdown has been hard for a lot of us. There's a lot of things that we have to view. I would not only sit and view the negative of the lockdown, but there's also a lot of positive that came out of this lockdown. I could agree with Jermaine wholeheartedly that the digital age took action, which we are no longer in the Days of Our Lives 1985 series, but we came up to the Days of Our Lives at least 2010 series. We still at 2020, but we at 2010 series. And I could tell you that for somebody that most, if not all of my business is in technology, building apps and all of that, and building software for a number of companies, including partnership that I have with government agencies and whatnot. So I love the fact that right now I don't have to get up and go to like an authority. I don't have to go and wait in those dreadful lines for police certificate, a character. I don't have to go Kaipo anymore. I can just do all that EPA system online. I sign up for the Easy Pay online, and I've been milking that with anything that I have to pay government for with that Easy Pay. And so I think that people need to take advantage, sign up the account. I mean, I'm going to embrace the coming out of the new, and we need to talk about that probably in our next show or so.
Yeah. I guess special guests
ID cards. And so these are things that are good for us. I would like to see that we reach herd immunity and be vaccinated. I'm going in for mine shortly. A number of the homeless is saying, hey, we need it because there are a large population over 70 with with NCDs. So I'm pushing for them to get it. I'm pushing for Barbadians to get it. You know, just the amount of things that are happening. There is a lot of positive that I'm seeing. I can commend the government on the way forward. You guys saw me saying big up to the Prime Minister for the work that she has been doing. As somebody in the spotlight, and each of us, I can say attest to it, each of us has some sort of popularity and some sort of spotlight. Is that it's not easy to just be in the spotlight and everybody just punching, and nobody's saying thank you, thank you, thank you. And
agreed.
Even though we can't reach everybody, government can't reach everybody, and that's why it has social sectors like us. That's why it have the churches. That's why it have you, the general public, to help to soften the cushion a little bit as it relates to reaching one. You know, reach one. Everyone can reach one.
Each one reach one.
And you know, each one reach one. And
that is our slogan for the last election.
Correct. And so we need to be
each one touch one.
That we can all embrace it. The government will miss the ball at some point of time, and that is where I would say they need to engage more and more people like us, people on the ground, people like that are hearing from people that are working in our community leaders, our NGOs, faith-based organization, and the general public that may not be registered as organization, but maybe reaching people that have ideas that can help soften the whole blow as it relates to how do we go through this COVID situation. But by and large, I think Barbados has been handling it well. We have been praised internationally. Our Prime Minister have been praised internationally. Yes, we had our rough patches. We're coming out of it. We're opening, but I would only plead with Barbadians to please follow protocol, wear your mask, stay 6 feet apart, wash your hands, check yourself, check your attitude and your mentality, because that's a big thing as well. People's attitude and mentality towards this COVID situation, like the comment we saw where somebody said, hey, they ain't no COVID. I mean, that's an ignorant, foolish statement, straight hands blank. That's a foolish statement. It is here. It is among us. We need to protect ourselves. We need to protect our family. I would hate to know somebody coming up to me and tell me, hey, take off the mask and talk to me and say, hey, Barbados ain't got no COVID. I would say, you're a big idiot. Go from in front of me, because I'm not putting my, even if you don't have the belief, I'm sorry, take your belief and talk to a pole. You ain't talking to me, because I got to protect myself and you got to protect my family. And so, you know, we need to stay strong. We need to support being vaccinated. We need to get ourselves in check. Any of you guys got any closing statements?
Let me just go for, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Gimar.
You could, go ahead. Like I said, it was a very trying time for all of us. I had my fair set of challenges as well. But I thank God for life for that I'm here right now, be able to contribute. Yeah, so I did what I needed to do to protect my family, to protect my friends, encourage people to for the calls where necessary. Know that we're emerging out of the lockdown, but I would encourage people not to become complacent and to always remember that the threat is very real. On a larger scale, I will look forward to see how the country, in terms of government maneuvers through the situation economically. Of course, you know, I love the economics, so looking forward to seeing how we maneuver. Looking forward to getting into the conversation and contributing how we can. I know encourage you fellas as well to contribute how you can. Simon, even though you're wearing your right shirt this time, I still hope that we're very much able to have partnerships where necessary in terms of contributing to the public conversation in the public space. Yeah, encourage the viewers, thank the viewers a lot for tuning back in with us again. And as we come back next week, I encourage you to continue to contribute in the comments. I very much love that you're here.
Comments going strong. I can tell you that the comments still booming strong.
Lovely, man. Lovely.
Yeah. Somebody said, Okimar, it's the Elmo in the background. Somebody want to know if you're running in St. Lucie, Elmo's. You're trying to send a message. I ran in St. Lucie.
Unfortunately, it's left to be seen if I'm running or not. We will find out later.
We would love to see you though. He's a young bright star. We would like to see that. Let's not that whole horses go home straight off.
Let me get away, boy.
You want to call some names with me?
I don't want to see the old come back.
I call them, but I
would like the Lashleys to stand out, and I would like the Bulldogs and the Lows and stuff to give the opportunity to young people. No man, you've served your time well.
But it's what I even mean to cut you, but even going back to what the public, I think that political parties gotta listen to the public. If the public want you, they will clearly let you know. You gotta look outside of your group, your niche. Because if people in your branch want you, it is no indication that the rest of the constituency wants you.
Or Simon or doesn't want you. Or even
that is why polling
is important.
And doing polls are very important. Unless you do a poll, a proper poll, and you put some names forward to the people and say, look, people of Barbados, what do you think about these people? Should we run them or not?
But Simon,
that's how you know what the people want.
Simon, if persons get in a room and see 9 Barbadians and say, listen, you got a choice between Simon Allen and this body. Who do you want? And the 9 persons said they want the body, but let them be agents too.
Yeah, but
right,
the 9%,
too.
But the problem is,
but the 9 don't reflect the 6,000 in the constituency.
Don't reflect the 6,000. And many times, that's why the 9 just going to end up just being a 9. So they can't even multiply.
Well, you know,
I said, I always remain a flawless 9 that just ignorant in thinking that, you know what, we need bring in somebody because we like somebody.
Simon,
you can run me.
Simon, I took that analogy from former Prime Minister Frando Stewart when he talked about the people who favored him. So, but in my wrap-up comments though, I want to say this.
I got to stand after you. Go ahead.
Okay, COVID for me has been a very trying time. You know, I tell persons since this virus started, I lost my mom, right? Which is the hardest thing I ever had even in life. I lost my job. I am still unemployed to this day, right? You know, I by the mercy of God, I am surviving, and I am doing things. What I want to say to you though is that, so for me, those are the negatives of COVID. The positives is, and I would say that this probably is reflected across Barbados and across the world. Persons have found themselves, persons become more humble. There's a greater understanding and appreciation for everything around you, from nature to persons to animals, right? The other thing that I want to say is that I think Kimar Stewart, the Democratic Labour Party, you shouldn't go be trying to figure out if you are going to run. The Democratic Labour Party should have already told you exactly where you're running, right? And you should already be out there on the ground trying to do your work, right? You may lose on the first outing, but you get the opportunity.
That's the electorate job,
right? But you get the opportunity. So, and I say that to you because young, bright persons like yourself in this country should not be left out in discourse. Young persons like ourselves here should not be left out. But you know what I find happens, and this is the thing that COVID has also shown up, right? The haves and the have-nots. Those whom their opinions will be listened to, and the others that their opinions will be discarded. The reality is that this virus has affected all of us. If this virus has not taught us that we need a new world order, when I say a new world order includes from political thinking to the way finance and wealth is distributed. We also, and you know, like how we mentioned earlier, that successive governments in Barbados have given their largesse to the lower income and the very high income, right? But those in the middle are the ones who are continually squeezed, right? This new world order must be inclusive of everyone. Yeah. And probably we need to have some honest conversations with ourselves. I may be a bit out of place now, but I'm going to say, during the middle of a COVID pandemic, we are paying for free healthcare, free education, free collection of garbage. So everyone in Barbados is benefiting from these services, but the country is not making any money, or should I say the country is making a limited amount of money. So probably this is the time now where the government of Barbados can initiate certain conversations with the people of Barbados. And, you know, I don't like to mention anything that Frando Stewart said, former Prime Minister. However, he made a valid point about 3 years ago when it came to the issue of free education. He made the point that when that was decided upon, when the expansion, and no, I said the expansion because free education was introduced by the Right Excellent Grant Lee Herbert Adams, right? And then it was expanded by the Right Excellent Earl Walton Barrow. He never intended for that to be a permanent policy of Barbados forever. So maybe this is the time that we can start having some discussions, some honest discussions when our population is listening, when our population is more in tune. It's like how unions now recognize that they cannot just get up and call wildcat strikes and defend workers who are doing foolishness, because you know what? You cannot think about shutting down a business now, because shutting down a business now could mean putting hundreds of Barbadians on the breadline. Because whilst you put 100 persons on the breadline, the 6 other persons who depend on that person now, because with the employment, we have an unemployment rate where we have 40 or 50,000 people in this country now whom are unemployed and are living by day-to-day subsistence, are dependent on the government of Barbados for an existence. So in my wrap-up, I would say the time has come where the government of Barbados can now have some serious and honest discussions with the population. This may be the optimal time. I don't think that this time will ever come around again, because once we get past this COVID pandemic, trust me, business getting back to normal in Barbados, huh? And when I say business getting back to normal, I mean all aspects of business. That is it for me.
Okay. Well, thanks for that, Jermaine.
Yeah.
Thanks for the input. Guys, thank you again all for coming on, for continuing. We have obviously know we're only the space. We're trying to respect that.
Yeah, I fight in sleep too, boy. Let me tell you, I find that since COVID, I go to sleep pretty early. I used to be a night owl before, but
well, Simon, I can't see you at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning coming from people's houses.
Yeah, I know Hampers. He was doing Hamper program. So I might tell you that you took part in the Hamper program. Don't make me hold you.
Don't listen to me, Simon.
Yeah, please, let it go. He just joking, but for my one part, as I wrap up, yeah, COVID had its cons, but there are a lot of pros coming out of COVID. I saw a lot of young people with business ideas, and they were featured on television too, in terms of the distribution of masks. And there was a lady that has done so well, a seamstress. She said it was doing clothes before, but what I did is that since COVID, I've been selling a lot of masks. A lot of people out there selling the face masks, and she redesigned the mask to be the 3D mask that fits the face better. What I'm saying is that in every crisis, there's opportunity. And I think that's the message I would want to leave with our viewers tonight, that in every crisis, there's opportunity. And even for me, I just want to serve. Now is opportunity for me to serve. I told people, I remember there's a guy that came up to me and would say, "Oh man, you left the Dems, this and that." I had to explain to him, but look, I just want to be in a position to serve. If you are a member of a football team, a Premier League football team, and for 3 seasons you were on the bench for that football team, you don't think that by the 4th season you'll say, "You know what? I can probably see if I could best play for another team." That happens. I don't, and I think for me as a person now, I used to be young. I can be 40 this year, still young-ish.
You're 40?
I don't want that. Yeah, I can be 40. I can be 40 in December this year, bro.
Yeah, that's all.
But that's good. Well, thank you. I mean, doing something right. The main thing is that we want to have people in positions to work and to serve. And for me, I am here to work and serve, just like you, Jermaine, you, Kimar, and you, Kimar Safri. We are here to serve and to work and to make the most of our opportunity so that we can be firm craftsmen of our faith.
All right.
That's all.
So, gentlemen, with that, we're going to pull a wrap. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, all the viewers. Like Wayne and those guys that keep us. Marion Griffith. She seems to like Jermaine. I don't know much people that like Jermaine on the show, but Wayne and Troy and you guys have been coming. Dial, I'm just calling some of the names that I see here that have been contributing regularly. Sanchia, overseas, all the people from the Philadelphia and the Brooklyn area. Big up to you. That have been thing more. I see more Wayne Hoyt and more Steves. A lot of these guys have been commenting. Thank you for coming back, Esther Blue. Thank you
yeah,
guys.
go on.
So we just want to encourage you again, be vaccinated if you can, and if you want to, you know, go there, help who you can help. I want to really encourage Barbadians to help somebody, despite what you have, despite what the challenges you're going through, help somebody, even if it's a little, help somebody. So thank
That's
you,
right.
Rhonda, Paris, thank you, Shane, thanks for the show. We are back again next week, Tuesday, same time, 6:30, talking about number of topics. We're going to have people in. We want to encourage you, if you want to come on, we're going to send you a link. You'll be coming on as a guest. And so we're gonna encourage people to come on and talk with us. We're gonna have some other people on the show next week, such as right? Oh, you said, more my boys, please. Okay, so we're gonna have some other people on the show next week, some guests, and we're gonna be discussing more hot topics. We're gonna go through. We're gonna be back out, but this is our platform for right now. We're gonna doing it from our comfort of our home and what's not. So thank you, everybody.
Thank
Tune
you,
in
everyone.
again to the DeBrief TV show next week, Tuesday at 6:30. Share the link. Like the page, please like our page so you know when we go live. Follow us on Facebook so you know when we go live. I just want to thank all the hosts, Jermaine Beckford, Kimar Stewart, Simon Ali, and myself, Kimar Safri, and all of you that made this show possible tonight. Thank you very much, guys. See you again. God bless. Stay safe.
Okay, thank you. Good night. God bless.
Good night,
Bye.
everybody.